Anyway, well, let's get started. Welcome everybody. We still got a couple of people trickling in, but I think we're ready to go. Thank you for joining us on behalf of the APA Atlanta board members, and we're excited to kind of just join you guys in our market here in Atlanta. I'll introduce our panelists in just a little bit, but just kind of give you a rundown why we're doing this. It's so we can collaborate and share information. I think it'll make for our market in Georgia and make us more successful. The more we know, the more we can rely on each other. And APA is certainly a really good resource. I'd like everybody to feel like they can reach out to any of us. There's so much going on, and it's been so difficult to navigate. Every day it seems to be changing. So that's kind of why we put this together. We were hoping to do this 2 months ago, but then the protesting happened and it just did not feel like it was the right time. And then Andrea Darcie, which is our awesome director, she took a full-time job. So I am playing interim director. I'm very excited about that. I was director for a few years. And my name is Callie Householder. I'm producer video production in Atlanta. Been doing that since 2006. Was in advertising for that. So here I am, and we have these awesome panelists. So we just want to kind of share our experiences. I know every panelist that's on right now has been out in the field, on set, working. So we really felt like it would be a good time to kind of tell about their experiences. There's a lot of questions that were asked in the registration process, so we'll try to get to as much as we can. An hour I don't feel is long enough, but we'll do the best we can. So I'm going to introduce Mark Hill first because he is our new chairperson. So we are super excited to have him, that he has stepped up to the plate, and we appreciate Harold Daniels for taking that role for so long. So we're looking forward to all the exciting and inspiring things that Mark's going to push us in that direction. So Mark, if you'll tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hey, thanks. Hi, I'm Mark. I'm a entertainment photographer here in Atlanta. I shoot mostly on TV and movie productions, and I'm a member of Local 600 Union, so I can shoot on the union sets. And before I was doing that, I was director of photography for Turner Broadcasting, so I did that for 20 years, so shooting for all those guys. And then before that, I was in New York. I was a food and still life photographer. So that's me.
Awesome. And Darcie, who's also going to help me monitor a little bit of the Q&A, because it's a little bit hard to be the moderator and see what else, all the things that are going on. So we'll try to make sure we get to everybody. But Darcie Adler from Spin Style.
Hi, everyone. I'm founder and creative director of the Spin Style Agency, and I have been in our world of Atlanta photography, advertising photography, since the early 90s, not to date myself, but why not? And so I've been a wardrobe stylist, a set designer, a prop stylist, an art director, and now I have an agency where I represent creatives here, support them, and I still do some art direction as well. But here on the board and always wanting to support all of the incredible photographers in our city. And so please, by all means, reach out if we can be of any support to you.
Awesome. And we have our amazing photography team of Tim and Andrea, Wedig, Laxton.
Hi.
Hey guys.
We're Tim and Andrea. We are advertising photographers here in Atlanta since 2008.
2008. Yeah.
So yeah, we.
Andrea mostly shoots like a lot of fashion, lifestyle, people, and mostly on the product side. But we collab together, and yeah, we've been working great. So, yeah.
Awesome. And then we have producer Amanda Burtney, friend and colleague of mine. We're excited that she's here. I know she's been shooting a lot and has a ton of experience, so we'll give it away to Amanda.
I'm Amanda Bertany, and yes, I'm a photo and video producer. I moved here to Atlanta in 2011. I'm from Chicago, so I work there as a local pretty regularly when it's not COVID, and in Atlanta a lot, and then work nationally and abroad, depending on the situation. I went to school for photography, and then I was a studio manager for a photographer in Chicago for several years. And then when I moved here, I started freelancing. So here I am. I've been in photography for a very long time. Thank you for having me, Callie.
Thanks for coming. And then last but not least, we have Liz von Haney.
Hi, so I'm Liz, and I've been here in Atlanta since the late 80s and working in the advertising, both fashion and lifestyle industry, both here in Atlanta and New York and a little in LA since the 90s. I had a studio here in Atlanta called Big Studio, which was also a rental studio. Bulk of my work for many years was in Atlanta, then a bulk of it was in New York, and now with the pandemic and the conditions shifting, it's been really fantastic to be working back here in Atlanta a lot more. So yeah, so excited to be on the panel and excited to share our experiences over the last few months, which have been, you know, for us, it's been a busy time. So I'm very grateful for that. Safe and busy.
Yeah, so awesome, Liz. Thank you so much. So again, welcome everybody. Thanks for joining us. Again, you know, one of the goals of this call is to collaborate and share information. We know the last couple months have been really challenging for everybody, so hopefully this will uplift everybody a little bit and give us some information as well. A lot of our stuff can be found on apaatlanta.com. So we'll go ahead and start in. Basically, we're going to talk about experiences on set and what's been going wrong, what's been going right, kind of the perspectives of you guys and how things have been happening on your sets in the last couple of weeks and months. So we'll start with Mark Hill.
So I've had 3 pretty big shoots lately, one on a TV show and one where we were shooting video, and then a portrait yesterday. And the first thing that I wanted to talk about was we're going to be throwing a lot of information at everybody today. And the one overall arching thing about COVID safety that I want to put out there is that there's got to be somebody on your set that's in charge of keeping everybody, not necessarily keeping them safe, but just making sure that they're following the rules that you've set down. And my cautionary tale is from yesterday. I was doing a portrait. It was a very, very small crew. And about midway through the shoot, I was drinking a cup of coffee, and then the talent walked in, and I didn't have my mask on. I picked up my camera and I started working, and it never dawned on me to put my mask back on. And since I was the COVID compliance guy on the set, no one felt like they could talk to me and tell me to put my mask on. So if you're a photographer, you need to make sure there's somebody else that has the voice on your set that can tell people you're too close, or you need to put on you need to wash your hands, or you shouldn't be in this room, or you need to put your mask on. Because if it's the photographer and he or she isn't paying attention to the COVID stuff, then everything falls apart. So that being said, that's kind of an overarching thing. And I'm going to kind of talk about what I feel needs to happen even before anybody walks on set. So when you book a crew, it can be a small crew, it can be a large crew. One thing that I found very effective, and this was done by a TV production that I was on, the very first thing I shot, is they sent out a Google Forms questionnaire on the call sheet. And it went through all the COVID questions that you need to be asking people. Are you sick? Have you been diagnosed with COVID? Have you been around people with COVID? Or have you run a fever in the last 3 or 4 days, whatever? And if they answer, and then they need to answer the questions and then send it back to whoever sent the call sheet. And so even before anybody walks on set, you have this confirmation that everybody is aware that you're taking care of the COVID guidelines. And if someone does say, oh yeah, by the way, my spouse has COVID, then that gives you a full day to deal with the problem. So that's my number one thing that I wanted to talk about was just that getting that document on your call sheet and getting it in front of people and requiring it to be filled out the day before.
And you can also do that in DocuSigns. That worked for me. We sent it out 2 days before, and then I sent it out the day of. Unfortunately, it was 4:30 in the morning, but we still did it, and it was really easy. Nobody had to actually write anything or hand. We weren't trading papers or anything like that. So DocuSign works as well. So I think either one of those programs, we can put up kind of a health questionnaire sample, for people if they want to use that. I think it's really important.
So that's all for me.
So Mark, will you kind of touch on, like a safety meeting? I know you mentioned you had forgotten your mask, and I think, it's important for people to, safety meetings are very important. And in that saying, raise your hand if you at any point in time are not comfortable, or somebody that they can go to and say, hey, this other person is not really following guidelines. But I think talent and crew and clients need to feel like, they have a say, and they're able to, if there's anything that's not making them, comfortable, then they have somebody to go to, right?
Yeah, and in the TV production world, a safety meeting is a daily discussion. This is what we're doing. This is where we see hazards, like we're using flames, or we have live animals, or we have babies, or whatever. It's a discussion that happens at the top of the day. And so with COVID, I think that where the safety meetings really are valuable is you can set standards and expectations of everyone's behavior. Maintain social distancing. You have to wear your mask unless you're eating. We're going to break lunches in a staggered way so that people aren't sitting next to each other. If you interact with someone, go wash your hands or go use hand sanitizer. If you go get gear and you bring it into the studio, you got to wipe it down. All those things that you have set forth in your COVID guidelines should be aired and discussed with everybody before you start your workday.
And that's crew, talent, clients. It's everyone.
Every single person.
If talent are staggered, then maybe you have to have 2 safety meetings, but that's for everybody, right?
Yeah, and it should be run by either your producer or their photographer or whoever is the, kind of the person in charge of the room. It can be your first AD if you have one.
And that's a good segue for Amanda, because she and I have been talking about the medic for a couple of her sets, was actually helping give the safety meetings in conjunction with the producer and the medics. So maybe Amanda, you might be able to speak to that.
Yeah, very similar to Mark. I just came off of a big shoot with Liz, who's on our panel, and it was a 2-week shoot, and our medic was very thorough. She was really on top of it. So, we would do our safety meetings, and, like if there was animal talent, then now during COVID, not everyone can pet the animal, just go through everything kind of like Mark suggested. And we also did the health questionnaires ahead of time, but since it was a daily thing, she had a spreadsheet. So every day when someone would walk in the door, she would ask you the questions, and then she would check box all on the same sheet. So we're not, going through the same forms every single day, but she was really helpful with helping with safety on top of me, on top of the coordinator and the PAs and stuff. So, if some of the clients sometimes would start getting too close to each other, and she was just nice to have another voice there, and to, I can't be in all places at once, neither can the coordinator. So yeah, very helpful for sure.
So Amanda, what do you think have been your biggest obstacles on set?
Social distancing.
Yeah.
For the most part, I would say on, the majority of the shoot days that I've worked in general so far, people really try, but especially towards the afternoon, you start getting comfortable, and then, you kind of forget and you need a reminder. And then in some situations, it's, you know, it's impossible. But really trying as hard and best as possible to keep a distance. I think that's probably the biggest challenge, I think, for sure. I mean, in some cases, yes, like doing hair and makeup, you're right on top of each other. You know, when photo assistants are, you know, helping each other rig something, sometimes it's impossible, but really that would be the hardest thing, I think.
Yeah.
We literally taped off places, like taped off boxes on the floor and told people that that was their space, like the client's box.
Yeah. I did that like on the digital tech, and then, you know, we had more monitors, and we had one for the client, for Liz, everything, but people start migrating, and then you have to remind them, stay away. And then, you know, come around and we remind everyone to keep their hand sanitized and start spraying everyone down. People like the spray version of the hand sanitizer over the lotion. So it's kind of easy. Walk around and make sure everyone is keeping clean. But yeah, distancing is the hardest, I think.
And do you feel like there's like a sensitivity factor on set as far as like, you know, crew and talent?
Yeah, so I do want to touch on that. It's a very real virus, and you don't know what someone else is going through. So someone might have a family member that has or had it. You know, you don't know. And so on the last project, you know, I wanted to make sure everybody was very respectful of that, because, you know, we had a couple crew members who, you know, recently dealt with personal things of their own. And so, you know, you don't know what someone else is going through. So be very respectful and try not to make, you know, make it light of it or COVID jokes, because it's a very real thing. And yeah.
So, so Darcie, and so I felt like you were somebody that could really speak to crew and styling, and how you prepare your team beforehand as a, you know, as a business owner. You know, even just an individual business owner like myself, you know, I have to vet and do a lot of things beforehand to make sure it's even a set that I want to be on, right?
Right, exactly. So a couple of things. We have a COVID directive. It's 3 pages that goes through each category, each department, the expectations of respecting and following the COVID rules, the PPE, keeping your space clean, continually washing your hands, the social distancing, a lot of the details that we all already know, but we actually have each of the individuals who work with us, who are signed with us, or that we book. There are people outside our agency that we also book on projects, that they all have signed that. And then we take that and send it to all of our clients, so they are reassured, whether it's a producer or a client, creative, they know that our team is informed and that they have agreed to those expectations. And then on the other hand, we have something added to our contract that's for our clients, and the expectations that we have, and getting things kind of all out on the table about safety. And then we'll also have a verbal conversation with them, making sure that everyone will be wearing masks on set, that they will be distanced at lunch, and that everything will be covered. We did have an experience early on where everything was signed on both ends, but the shoot was going on outside, and the digitech and the photographer took their masks off, and our hair and makeup artist didn't feel comfortable approaching the screen to take a look at what was going on because they didn't have their masks on. So she felt uncomfortable, but also felt like she was in a position not to say something. So that's when we started having that verbal conversation before, just to make sure, you know, sometimes people sign stuff and they don't read it, you know, so. But I think that could have very well been, hey, their expectations were they were outside, they were safe, they probably work together all the time. And, you know, so that's where, you know, it would have been helpful for the producer to tap them on the shoulder and say, you need to wear your masks. So,
yeah. Darcie, I've got a question. Just because I know, because, you know, my daughter's a makeup artist, and I know that her kit, like to be COVID safe, and understanding that the talent that you're hiring for like your hair or makeup artist, some of their kits needed to be updated with the same type of precautions, but different, but for their trade. Like Piper's kit, she's had to increase the amount of like everything that's disposable mascara, everything's disposable, everything's used one time. So sometimes it's like, I think if there's a kit fee, if the client is able, or if the producer is able to put in a kit fee, because a lot of those materials to keep their kits safe, things that they didn't need to have 6 or 7 months ago, are now things that are standard every time. They have to have fresh everything, so that a lot of the materials and the things that are used are never, it just takes a lot more brushes, a lot more washing, a lot more disposable items. But I think it's something that in that industry, whether you're the hair artist or you're the makeup artist, the protection that they use, in addition to, because they're right in people's faces, it's like, not only should they be wearing the mask, but also the clear face shield and the gloves. It's like out of respect of touching and being right next to somebody, because the talent is not wearing a mask. When they're having their makeup done, they are maskless. So it's like that precaution needs to be taken by those people that are working right there with the talent that's not wearing masks, whether that's wardrobe, whether that's hair, and whether that's makeup, to make sure that, you know, it's unlike us on our side where it's like, oh, I'm standing next to my digital tech, I'm standing with my camera assistant, and we're sanitizing our hands consistently, and we're all wearing masks. But when we think of the talent who's there on set that doesn't have a mask, or that's having their hair and makeup done, that's not wearing a mask. So that's something too that we've just noticed with our productions that's been very important, to make sure that all of those things are taken care of by the individuals, the hair artist or the makeup artist or the stylist, that they're responsible for that knowledge.
Absolutely. Yeah, our hair and makeup team, they all have expanded their kits. They are, their kit fee has gone up since COVID started. And we haven't had anyone scoff about it. They understand and want to protect the talent and protect the hair and makeup artists. So that hasn't been an issue at all. You know, also, you know, having palettes, and each talent would have their own palette. So you aren't pulling makeup off of a palette for two people. And so there's a lot of that where they really have bigger kits now. The shield obviously is extremely important in combination with the mask. So all that, yes, is very, very, it's very true. And it's just the way things are now.
And I think to speak to that too, you know, before this all happened, I think, you know, kit fees were, if we could get it, if we could do it, great. I think it's non-negotiable these days for not only for hair and makeup, but for wardrobe as well, that, you know, it's that kit fee has to be in our budgets. It's just, I mean, they're spending their money to make sure that they're keeping the talent safe and themselves safe. So, you know, I think it's important to, when you are estimating, that you're including, you know, those fees in there. Which also leads me to, you know, the collaboration up front on any job. I think there's going to be more of it, and Darcie, maybe you speak a little bit more to that too. But you know, there's a lot of things that we can't just get there to pre-pro or the shoot and figure things out. There's so much, like, our teams have to be involved like way before than they ever were in the past. You know, whether you're doing mood boards, even hair and makeup, you know, how they're going to be set up, how we're all going to be protected and safe on set. So, you know, I think that that's something to keep in mind when you're talking about like communication every single item along the lines, like with your client, with your team, has to happen like way before. Not the day of anymore, right?
Right. The approval process for props, the approval process for wardrobe, all those things need to happen a lot sooner. Many of the things can't be sourced locally. If you're going to have shipping involved, obviously that has slowed down, and you can't rely on that as much as you used to be able to. So all that approval process really everybody needs to be on the game for that, because you know, you can't wait till the last minute. It just, chances are it won't work out. So definitely agree with that. Liz, were you going to say something?
I was going to say also, it's like making sure, and I'm sure Amanda could talk to this, but when you're doing the bidding process, it's like those line items that you didn't have to put in before. And when a client sees them on somebody's estimate and doesn't see them on somebody else's estimate, it shouldn't be like that, because I would hate to lose a job, just like anybody would hate to lose a job, because their producer didn't put those things in to be safe. So it's like if you're shooting in a home, I'll let Amanda talk about that, but it's like the cleaning, the before and after, the kit fees, the things, the materials, the COVID supplies. So maybe Amanda, share some of that, because I think that for us all to be safe, there should be some type of established, like, yes, for our clients, it does cost a little bit more to do these things, but they're not used to seeing it in their estimates. And it's like, well, do you really need this? So Amanda, if you want to talk just about that.
Yeah. I mean,
I'll be on a bigger line of the
yeah.
same.
No, yeah,
the same thing.
all the cleanings are very expensive, and we had a professional cleaner clean PC&E many times during our stay, and that was quite expensive. So it's just kind of a necessity now. I think the medic is a necessity on our shoots now. But yeah, as far as shooting at a house, we have to put the homeowner up in a hotel. Then if they have a dog, we have to board the dog. Then we have to deep clean the house before and after. We have to, do several things, and it's no longer a $3,000 house rental. You're talking like at least double that. So it is across the board, like you said, hair, makeup, wardrobe, production. I mean, I've spent thousands in PPE, and I have to keep up with it. So yeah, all departments, I'm just trying to think, because they're all affected, but you're right. I mean, it's not fair if certain people are lowballing things, and then they look at someone's estimate that's properly estimated with these expenses that, we have to do these things now. So
yeah,
there should be a standard across the board. And I think,
That's a good point.
I feel like from a client's perspective, like if I were to see an estimate that didn't include any kind of safety thing, that would give me concern. I would be like, are they going to be safe? I need some kind of like validation that they will look out for us so that everybody is safe. Nobody, liable. It's a smooth shoot. And
yeah, and I like the idea Liz had about some sort of established list,
like
because
a standard.
I know when we were, coming back to one of our first shoots after being quarantined for so long, we thought we had thought of everything. And then as soon as we spoke with our producer, we're like, oh my gosh, we did not think of everything. So, I think it could be beneficial in that way as well, too, just to make sure that we're all remembering all the safety that we can provide. And, really that's the most important thing right now. So.
One other client expectation thing that I think is important is that things are going to take longer than they're used to. That, we're not going to be able to turn sets as quickly because, 15 people can't walk onto set. You can't do lighting and set build and all these different things happening all at once, that teams have to go in and work by themselves for a while. So clients are going to have to understand that we might have to stretch our timelines out a little bit. And another important point is how hard we work our crews. In the television industry now, they're now mandating, at least for union shows, 10-hour workdays. That's so that you don't beat your crew up so much that people are getting sick from overwork. So that's another thing that we might start thinking about as a organization, is like trying to get the clients not to work for 15, 16-hour days.
Yeah. And so, Tim,
just to go back to Mark's first point, talking about turning a set around, that was something that we encountered on our first shoot. It was, we had to have a video crew that came in behind us. So, we just game planned it. We talked about it with our assistants, our whole crew, and just explain like, okay, here's what's going to happen. You're going to only touch this. You're going to only touch this. Everybody sanitize this. The photo crew's going to go in and like set up the lighting, and then wardrobe or prop styling is going to go in on their own time. Like, it does take a little bit longer, but we found a rhythm to it. And by the end of the day, like we got our shot.
It was also kind of nice. I mean, I think we're all kind of used to being just like, filled up with people in a room all on top of each other. So it was nice to be able to kind of give each other a little bit of breathing room, give each other a little bit of time to set up, make sure it's safe. I felt good about it. I mean, I think that it should be, you know, a kind of a good mindset going forward, you know, and
The health officer as well, or some kind of medic, was also very important, because then that's their only job. So you don't have to worry about it. Producer doesn't have to worry about it. Literally their only job is to make everybody safe. And that was very beneficial as well. And
yeah, we had a separate PA that was our health monitor.
Yeah. Who was certified.
When everyone got to set, before you even, you know, when you were walking up to the driveway of the location, you know, they met you, questioned you, did all that kind of stuff. So,
and yeah, we felt it was a very successful couple of shoots.
Yeah.
So how was your communication with the client, like the expectations? I know one of my shoots, I said, I know this sounds crazy, but I have to ask the question, are you, as the client, okay with wearing a mask? I mean, it sounds really stupid that you would have to ask that question, but you know, I think you do, and you have to kind of vet your clients. So how's your communication with your clients been as far as safety goes and expectations?
We've been very beneficial, you know.
we had a specific call just based about that, because I mean, specifically about the one shoot that we did coming back from quarantine. It was 4 different homes in 2 different cities. And so, you know, being inside other people's homes during such a sensitive time and things like that, we wanted to be respectful of that.
Yeah.
And so that's something we talked a lot about with the client, is making sure that, you know, whoever's home we were going to be in, we gave them the same respect, because, you know, some of the locations we were at, you know, were properties that were for use, you know, in films and stuff like that, but people also live there as well. So there was a whole conversation about that. And then there was the whole conversation about, you know, how we wanted to treat our crew on the set. And we wanted to make sure that our kind of beliefs were at least known, because, you know, people have different beliefs about all this. And we want to just make sure that, you know, at least our voice is heard, and in the most respectful way, and just in, you know, keeping people safe. So we had a whole like Zoom call just about that, really piggyback to the actual like first creative call. So it was very early on, and I thought it was awesome. I mean,
it was awesome. And I will say, you know, even with all of that, there was one point where the client started taking off their mask, and it's like, that's so awkward, because you don't want to call them out. You're not trying to reprimand them, but at the same time, it's mandatory. Like, it's non-negotiable.
Yeah. And how do you handle that?
We just nicely reminded them to put it back on. We had to do it a couple of times, but they were very receptive to it. So, I mean, for us, it's non-negotiable. If you don't want to wear a mask, then we're not the photographers for you, because safety is first. We have a kid, you know, like we're not trying to put anyone in danger, and we want to work, but we want to work smart. So
right. And I feel like that you have to, I mean, when you're putting a shoot together and a team together, like they're usually going to be your go-to people, right? But I feel like you even have to go that extra step now to vet your crew and whoever's going to be on set with you, and have conversations with each one of them, you know, so that you are on the same page. Because I feel like you're only as safe as the person next to you or the talent that walks in the door. It just takes one person, right? So yeah. I think that communication, and I think you guys would agree, is really important with vetting your crew and your talent.
And that was something we discussed with our producer. She was very adamant, as were we, that we weren't working with anybody that we hadn't worked before with prior. You know, we knew them. You know, we've known them for a while, so we trust them, and we know they're of the same mindset that we are, and we felt very comfortable with it. But yeah, you need to make sure you know who you're working with, because it's important.
And we had that call too with just crew. You know, we had a lot of different calls with the kind of each kind of production area, just to kind of feel them out and see how they were feeling in general, you know, make sure, you know, I mean, we're all kind of friends and family in Atlanta. So, we checked on each other. We talked about what their concerns were. You know, some people have kids and are way more, you know, inclined to kind of be hesitant about getting out there, and totally understandably. Mm-hmm. So it was good to have those extra calls, take that extra time, make sure we all felt good going into the shoot and there wasn't any really unknowns, that we're gonna, hopefully try to cover those areas so that they didn't come up, and we kind of were on the same page.
Yeah, it was just about being respectful,
Yeah, I have a question that's different about what happens if your shoot, like, we didn't have any problems, but when you have a medic and the medic is there every morning, you go in, they take your temperature. I mean, has anybody had the experience where it seems like everyone's had these I've had great shoots, you guys have had great shoots. What happens when somebody shows up and it's the photographer and the photographer's temperature is above what it's supposed to be? Or what happens if your production, if somebody, somehow something goes down? Like, I think when Amanda, you had mentioned somebody that you knew whose production had been shut down. Like, what happens if I were to show up? I'm just curious because I haven't had this experience, but we've got work coming up and God forbid I show up and all of a sudden my fever says 101 and I didn't feel bad. But what do you think? How do you think? Has anybody experienced anything with that type of situation?
We have not, thankfully. I mean, we've had good temperatures all around. That's a really good question, though. Like,
what happened?
Yeah, what do you do?
Well, it would be no different than if you had an appendicitis in the middle of the night, or if, like, I had last year or a year and a half ago, I had a kidney stone, and man, I could not shoot. And that's how you have to treat it,
Well, what happens with the estimate? Like, I'm just curious, like, what happens? Is there any safety? Because is there anything, like, what about the client that's paying big expensive day rates, big expensive production costs, and all of a sudden somebody that's an integral part of the crew, whether that's the photographer or the talent, shows up and all of a sudden your production gets shut down? I mean, is there anything is it like a rain day contract? Is there anything that's being thought about or being provided where it says, hey, if this were to happen due to this instance, that there is some type of a backup plan or a rain day or something that's written to get an extension on the project to where people can't cancel, tens of thousands of dollars aren't lost because somebody on the crew has shown up with a fever?
Well, I think that
adding a COVID clause into your.
Go ahead, say that again, Andrea.
Saying was adding a COVID clause into your contract.
There's a good. We got everybody, like, right now. It's like everything I'm hearing as a photographer. I have heard everything, and I'm listening to everything, and I've had great shoots. We've had great productions. So while we're all here, if that's a concern for other people, I would be interested to hear what would happen, or what steps do you take? That's now that we know all the forms and how to find all the forms, how to ask all the questions. But what happens if somebody, is that something that maybe to be thought about?
Well, I think that there's a certain amount of redundancy that you can build into your crew, so that there are certain departments that if you lost one person, like in your assistant lineup, you would have enough people to do the job.
Right.
But if it's somebody who is integral, like your client or you or your producer, there might be times where you just can't shoot. And that would be the same if you broke your leg the day before. And the clients, you'd have to have some sort of conversation with your clients, like say, hey, I can't shoot today. I just broke my leg. Or I can't shoot today because I have 101 temperature and I can't get everybody sick.
That's what I think. I'm wondering, if there shouldn't be some type of discussion where that's something that's kind of evolved, as long as we're doing all of these, if everyone's being asked to fill out these worksheets, which we're doing, which everybody's wearing the masks, it's not like a sickness, because the sickness, if it's COVID, is related to everything that we're signing all these forms and we're doing all these things to be safe, and then somebody shows up and might have a fever. Like I said, somebody that's the integral part. I feel like maybe, is that a conversation that producers like Amanda, like Callie, what do you?
So I have a COVID clause that I have on my production part of the estimate, and I know that the Spin Style has the same clause. And it is good to have backup, assistance and stuff. But this is true, if Liz goes down and everybody else is okay, you're why we're here, So for you, I think we'd have to shut it down for a day and then figure it out. I mean, Callie, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. And I also agree with Mark in that, it could be, you could break your arm and it would be the same thing. So I think that it still falls under the things that already happened leading up to this, right? If it's a crew member, I remember one of my guys, we were in Jacksonville and he was deathly ill, and I just sent him downstairs in the air conditioning, and I kind of was able to bring up our PA in to help out, to fill in a little bit. I mean, it wasn't perfect, but, we got through it, and it's just about navigating. And, as producers and photographers, like we problem solve all the time. So I don't know if that answers, but.
But the estimate I do does have this COVID clause, and I can send it to all you so you could read it. It gives the right to terminate the project immediately if someone were to come down with COVID. It's just, I think it's a little different. Everybody is very important to the project, but I do agree that it's a little bit different if Liz Von Haney
or any photographer, just like
any photographer comes in with
you'd be like, oh my God, well, I would be terrified. I'd be like, oh my God, what would you do? I would feel very like, I wouldn't know what to do. So just knowing that could be a conversation, or for me to know a little bit more about what that would mean to my clients that have invested lots and lots of money to do this production. Like, how is that? And, and if there's any, I know that like the rapid tests, the idea of rapid testing and how it's not really, unfortunately, available the way that we would want it to be made more available for all of us if something like that were to happen, it would be like a rapid test would be a great way to know whether or not you have COVID or whether you have
the testing
else, a fever from having something else that has nothing to do with COVID.
The testing here has recently gotten better. Before it was just awful. So it was like a week to get your results, and now it's gotten a lot faster, but still it's not fast enough for when you're at the door to walk into your shoot. So
yeah,
I know that there are companies out there. I know that there are companies out there that are catering testing to our industry, and they can send every one of your crew members a COVID kit that you can take, 2 or 3 days before you have to be on set. I can find out more information about that, and we can post that later as well.
That would be awesome.
Great. I mean, that would be awesome, especially for people that might have certain conditions, whether it's like you have a shoot that's somewhere where it's quarantined and would want to have an option to be tested, whether you're headed out or you're coming back. Just something that any of that information, especially if it's geared towards the industry, that would be really helpful, I think.
There's a question on the chat from Lauren Driscoll about quarantining crew members, and I think it's important that everybody, if you set your expectation with your crew that you're like, hey, fill out your COVID questionnaire before you come to set, take your temperature before you come to set, and then if you show up to set and you have a fever, you're sent home. That keeps at least the shoot from being derailed. And hopefully that answers her question. You would need to quarantine everybody if you catch it before people are mingling together.
Okay. And that might lead us into, talking about waivers and guidelines and that kind of thing. And I know everybody's got their opinion. We don't have an official stance. I think it really comes down to the photographer and the production company and what they decide to do. Amanda has certain things that, like, she has the clause and she has waivers, and but I think it's an individual choice at this point in time. There's certainly waivers that are out there. We're not a legal entity, so we can't say either way. But maybe Mark, if you want to speak a little bit on that.
Well, I can tell you what APA says. There is an APA waiver out there that would help identify you as a photographer or as a producer from liability if someone does get sick. But APA National told me today that they didn't feel like those would stand up legally. So you could ask people to sign these waivers, but what does it really do for you if they don't have any legal status? They also said that you shouldn't force people to sign these as a part of their employment with you. If they don't want to sign it, don't make them sign it. And I lost my train of thought. I was going so well there for a second. It'll come to me. It was pretty awesome though.
Well, I think that people are, when they take the job, they're volunteering to be on set, right? So they're volunteering to go by your particular guidelines, whether you're a production company or a photographer. So I think that they have to, I think the waivers is really keeping good people honest people good, however that goes. But so I think it's a choice. It's an individual choice, whether you want to do it or not.
Yeah, and that was my point. That was the point I couldn't remember. If you hand somebody a waiver, what it does is it makes them think about what they're getting ready to do and make that informed decision rather than just walking into the situation blindly. And it also shows that you're thinking about the situations that you're putting everybody in.
Right, exactly. And that also leads me to guidelines. I think everybody, there's been so many out there and things change on a day-to-day basis. Amanda and I created our own guidelines. There's a great guideline that Andrea Darcie did that's on our site that you can go to. I'm inclined to suggest going to Georgia TV and Film, and because theirs is published. I think it's a little vague, but if your client is asking, hey, I need to see what guidelines you're following, go to some of the published ones. So that's my little tidbit about guidelines. I don't know if anybody else wants to make a comment on that or not, but I think that it is important to send that out in your communications with the client and your talent and your crew. These are the things that I'm following as a production company and what I'm asking you to do as well. Does anybody want to elaborate on that?
Can I switch subjects?
Yeah, absolutely.
One thing we really need to kind of talk about a little bit is feeding people all day long. Because I know that my crew likes to eat junk food the entire day, and so on my last shoot, I decided I would serve as craft services director, and just to kind of get an idea of what it was like to try to buy food that was more COVID safe. So as far as Crafty is concerned, we bought everything was prepackaged, every single thing. And they could, one by one go into wherever the craft services was, and they could grab a package of nuts or a package of protein beef jerky or a bag of chips or whatever. And that was their little bag. So that's something I think, the whole time period of having a giant bowl of M&Ms is over, unfortunately. You have to commit to an entire bag of M&Ms if that's your jam. And as far as lunch is concerned, with all our catering, we mandated we didn't bring in catering. We just went to restaurants because we only had 14 people. So it was pretty easy just to call a restaurant, order up lunch, and everybody's meal had to be packaged in its own bag with someone's name on it, with all the plastic utensils and all the napkins and everything that they would need inside the bag. And if you want bonus points, you can stick a little single-use hand sanitizer in every single bag. That's really cool. They do that on Delta flights, and it's really neat. You can kind of squirt and go. So that's
we my last shoot, I just asked all the talent to bring their own waters and their own snacks, but then we would have supplement it. But I think if you can, that person, there needs to be one person that handles craft service. And that's it. That's all they do. They handle the craft service. I know, like in the film world, that always happens. But for stills, we don't always have that luxury. But now I think it's imperative to have one person that's handling everything, so that a lot of can be packaged. I know, Amanda, you probably on your sets have had a specific person for that particular role.
Yes. Same person does it all, and boxed lunches and breakfasts individually, everything individually wrapped, and that's the way it is right now. So we still try to keep the same quality though, if we can. So some of our caterers have adapted to the COVID way of doing things. So we still want everybody to eat really well and have options. That's, I find that important. If you're going to be working all day, a good fed crew is a happy crew. So, but yes, one person has to handle it all.
Yeah.
We have a good question here from some of our listeners. How do you handle a situation with a repeat client who is working with their in-house production team and safety isn't fully being reinforced or taken seriously? I think it's a good question.
A repeat client?
A repeat client, very important, a repeat client who is working with their in-house production team and safety isn't
I
fully
think I can
being
answer that one.
Yeah,
I do. I think I can answer that one. I would say when it's not being properly enforced, and if it's a repeat client and the first round was not handled as properly as you would want it to be handled, you have to bring it up. And then, like this happened to us, so we needed to basically make our own suggestions to make the production safer by offering ways to maybe bring in an additional set of hands. Maybe it didn't need to be the cost of a PA, because the production is supposed to be handling COVID safety, but maybe if they weren't properly staffed, we suggested to bring in somebody else that basically could just be somebody that could be wiping things down consistently, having a discussion with the ways that we were going to change things from one to make the change, like from one shoot to what needed to change for the second shoot, in addition to vocalize, really being very vocal with the production of why we thought that these things needed to change. And then still kind of, it seemed a little vague. So we then offered to at least maybe even just bring in one extra support, but maybe it didn't have to be someone really expensive, a full production assistant person, but at least to give them a little extra support to help reinforce the things that would keep the shoot safe, which would be the hand sanitizing, the cleaning, the wiping things down, making sure that you're not using a hand towel in a bathroom, but it's paper towels. But having an additional conversation, almost like a Zoom, a call, where all these points are discussed and really bring it to their attention. And I mean, we did make that shift to the next round, where it was definitely an improved situation, but we had to be very vocal about it and had a large meeting where everybody was on the phone to discuss why and why it needed to change.
I mean, our role is to educate our clients, because a lot of them aren't thinking about any of this stuff. They just want their photography done. They're
Right.
not thinking about talent being scared to come to work. They're not worried about the photo assistant whose mom is immunocompromised. They're not thinking about any of those things. So, have those specific hard conversations with your clients, especially if they aren't taking it seriously.
Well, if they're having in-house production as well, they're not on all the Zoom calls. Like when I think of when everything started happening in March, I had my in-house producer and studio manager, Claudia Bost, worked with Amanda and the whole team to really get educated on how to take precautions. But if you have an in-house production team, they're not on these Zoom calls. They may not be aware of all of the releases and all the waivers, because they're living in a different way of producing shoots. So I think it's our place as photographers, or as, they wouldn't be working with they wouldn't be working with a freelance producer. So an in-house production, I think then it comes down to the photographer to say, listen, these are the things, this is what's going on. These are the steps that we've been using to stay safe on our shoots with outside production, and help educate them.
Yeah, absolutely. I think like Tim and Andrea said that, they had a call just in itself just to talk about COVID.
Perfect.
So, I think that that's another thing that you have to add to your list of collaborating on way before. I know one of my shoots, we talked an hour about it, just specifically about that. And, as a producer, I was the person tasked to make sure that they were on board, because you have to make sure that they're on board. And I've had a shoot that I didn't feel safe. I was like, I don't think they're going to put the right amount of money in the budget for this shoot, and I declined it. Because I have a child, I have a family, and it's hard to turn away work. I mean, it's not a time where I think any of us can do that, but your safety comes first, right?
Mm-hmm. It's not worth it, safety. Yeah.
No. So we have just a few more minutes. I wanted to hear a little bit more from Liz about her challenges and maybe creative challenges that she's had, and kind of her perspective a little bit. And then if we have any time, if we have any additional questions, Darcie, let us know. But would love to hear a little bit more from Liz.
Well, we've had a few different productions, some where the clients have been present here in Atlanta, and some where the clients have been in a whole nother state. And both of those approaches, from even just like the bidding process, were different approaches because they had different needs. So due to the COVID situation, if a client's in Arizona and you're shooting for them here, we made sure that the digital package included all of the streaming capabilities, so that the client and the agency that was in Arizona was able to see things as we were shooting. But that started first from having conversations with the digital tech to say, listen, this client's going to be in Arizona. What do we need to put in our estimate to cover this, so that they can be virtually present? So that went pretty well, but we even learned from that experience that there was two different ways of streaming, and I would have to think about which way worked better. I think there was a better way. Do you remember which way was the better way of streaming?
Zoom ended up being better than Vimeo, and then sorry, I'm thinking, that was it.
But I think that's a conversation to have right away with the bidding process with your producer when you're pulling numbers together, just to make sure that you're asking the right questions to your digital tech, and then you're bidding, you're estimating it for properly in your estimate. I know that we were streaming on another project that was not in studio, and it took a lot more time to set all the equipment up. And my digital tech said, well, the next time we do this, if we need to live stream, I need an assistant to help me get all this gear and all this live streaming equipment up and running. So the next time that we shoot on location, like in a field or somewhere, and if they want live streaming, that I will put into the estimate an assistant for him or her, so that they can properly have the support that they need, so that the shoot is not taking longer because of the setup time, because this person is doing it themselves. The projects that we've done in studio here or on location with clients being present have been really successful. We've had very strong production and leadership to make sure that the COVID steps and precautions were in place, that everybody was educated, the people that were involved in the shoot, whether it was the hair artist and makeup artist to the clients, everybody knew what to expect coming into it. So they've all been very smooth. Different monitors, again, to have your digital team, again, make sure that they have enough monitors so that the tech has his monitor, I have a monitor, and then we had a third monitor for the clients. I would step away from my monitor, and maybe the glam team could come up. They could look at my monitor. As Amanda said, I think our biggest challenge was just trying to stay separated, trying to keep our social distancing. But that's when people would come along and say, keep your social distance. And everyone
shout social distancing.
Social distancing. So that probably was the biggest challenge. But we have hand sanitizers. I mean, I have them at the stations on the computer pads. They are all over the place. So we are hand sanitizing throughout the day. I hand a camera hand the camera, I'm hand sanitizing. I get a camera back, I'm hand sanitizing. We had so much hand sanitizer going through the whole crew in many different stations, not just at a table. It's like production table. A production table filled with like production's hand sanitizer is great, but whoever gets, it's like catering when it's set up in the next room. The only people that eat catering are the people that aren't needed on set. So your production table has to be set up literally very close to where you're actually shooting, and not like in a hallway or near a front door, because all the people and all the actions happening, and that's where we need all the stations, or that's where we need the individuals, making sure everybody has an individual thing, digital, hair and makeup, they all have their own in addition to the table.
Hey Liz, I got a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
When you're remote broadcasting your shoot to clients that are out of state,
Mm-hmm.
were they frustrated because they were always speaking to the room when they had direction? Like, were you able to have like private conversations with your client? You know,
We
like,
did. We went back and forth with check-ins and phone calls. There was a little bit of a delay, like a 14-second delay from them seeing the feed. So we would shoot, check in. Amanda would be on the phone, checking in. What do you guys think? They would say they'd make changes, would make the changes, would shoot, and then they would watch. And then we would check in again. Is there anything else? Do we need to, cover this with more smiles? Do we need to pull back? There would be a check-in phone call periodically during the shooting process to make sure that they were happy with everything and what else they might want to have changed. That was a really successful process. We had a great shoot with them, and they felt very much like they were present. One thing that I wish that we'd been able to get it up and going, but I guess there was a problem with routing, but it had been offered to have a GoPro set up, which I was like, oh, that sounds so great, because then they could see everything as people are buzzing around, and they could see the build, they could see things as they were happening. I fell in love with that idea, and then we had some technical complications and couldn't get it up and going. So I think the next shoot where we're working remotely, I think that that's a great fun thing to have, that the clients would be able to see the action as it's happening and not just view the images as we're streaming. So that would be something that I would suggest for anybody that has a production where the clients are not going to be present. And if you're in a studio setup, that would be something fun that I think the clients or the agency would enjoy, making them feel like they were present in a way. Then you could also like go up and talk to them. I was excited to be able to say, I was excited to be able to go up to the GoPro and be like, hey, just, have fun with it. And it didn't come out that way, but that's all right. But we've had a lot of fun. It's like, for me, it's like as serious as the conditions are, and as serious as we took all the precautions, it's still real important to make everybody feel comfortable and connected and have our music and still not lose the spirit due to the conditions. So to still keep a very open dialogue with your crew. And, we still have had, great time with the workflow, taking all the steps, to be safe.
That's awesome. So we're just after 3. I think we could probably hang on for a couple more minutes, but we'll probably have to wrap it up pretty soon. Darcie, was there anybody else that had questions that they had to answer?
I think we got to everything. There were some interesting points. Lauren Driscoll had said in the film world, they are separating departments into pods. And if someone gets COVID, they quarantine the pod for 14 days and production pays the crew that's quarantining. I don't know if that's going to be necessarily applicable entirely to our productions, but I like the concept of the pod.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on that, Callie or Amanda?
I think for stills that would be really difficult. But we're on set, I think, we're definitely able to, if given the room and the space, we're able to kind of segregate all of the different apartments. You have to, right? So.
Right, like the camera team has their place in the room, props has their place, glam has their place, clients have their place. That's kind of the pod way. And I think she's talking about, productions that are lasting months and months and months.
I just don't think it's very real. It's a very good way to do it, I think, for a film, but I just think for our size, it's very unrealistic for our size shoot that we would be able to do something like that.
Is there anything else from our panelists that you guys wanted to add real quick? Nope. And I know we didn't get to everything. There were a lot of other questions that our people that registered. So sorry we didn't cover everything. We just really tried to keep it to experiences and how, you know, we're finding how to be safe on set and that kind of thing. So hopefully we'll have another one of these in a couple of weeks, maybe talk about payroll and some other things that are going on that everybody wants to know. So again,
wait, one last thing. There is an APA YouTube channel that has recordings of this kind of discussion that have been done all over the country by the different chapters. So if you're interested in this or maybe some other thing, go and search for the APA YouTube channel and check it out. You might actually learn something.
Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah, I knew Amanda and I have dialed into a lot of Zoom in the last few months. It's a lot of information and a lot of things change day to day. You know, it's sometimes it's kind of mind-boggling, but we're doing our best to keep up with it, and the more that we can share information and collaborate. And just wanted to thank everybody for joining and know that you're not alone. We're all on this roller coaster together, and you know, APA is a great resource. Feel free to contact me or anybody really on this. You know, I think we're all like willing to share, and you know, if we're successful, then, you know, the next person can be successful. You know, the last thing Georgia needs is to have another story in the national headlines. So, you know, we want to keep all of our people here in our market and in Georgia safe, and you know, in surrounding areas. So, this has been recorded, so I will try to get it up on the website tomorrow. Hopefully, everybody got a little bit of something out of it, and I guess that's it. So thank you guys. You guys are amazing. I'm excited. I'm glad you guys are working and sharing your experiences. We're just, you know, it's uplifting. I know that, you know, sometimes you kind of get in a hole, but, you know, you just reach out to people, and we're here, and just know that there's things going on, and you don't have to go through it alone. So have a great rest of your Thursday, and I appreciate all of you guys. So
Thank you so much, Kelly.
Thank you so much, guys.
be safe.
Thank you.